Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Let's Talk Transport, the new interview series brought to you by Intelligent Transport, where we sit down with some of the biggest names in transportation and mobility to ask them even bigger questions. My name is Leah Hockley, I'm the editor of Intelligent Transport, and I'm joined today by Abellio London's Lorna Murphy. Lorna is currently the Operations and HR Director at Abellio. Since joining in 2009, she has risen through the ranks of the company, moving from her original role as operations manager through 2 additional senior positions before being promoted to her current role. Lorna joins me today to discuss her experience working within the industry and to share her thoughts on improving diversity within public transport. So, Lorna, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks very much, Leah. It's been great to be invited, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's certainly shaping up to be a really interesting one. And I thought before we dive into the real deep side of diversity within public transport and what can be done to improve it, I thought it would be really great for our audience to start by having you tell us about your experience within the public industry and more specifically your role at Abellio.
Sure. So this year in September, it'll be 18 years that I've been working in transport, which is quite a big number. It's gone very fast. I joined in 2005 on a graduate scheme with National Express, and I worked up and down the country across bus, train and coach. And it was a really fantastic 2 years, getting a great grounding in literally every element of public transport, which was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Met some great people, went to some interesting locations. Worked around the clock, and I just done lots and lots and lots, really. And from that sort of really broad grounding, I just really liked bus. I love the people, and that's what's kept me in bus ever since, really. And one thing I think bus is fantastic for is its diversity, and it just adds so much to the day to day, really. I think that there's more that we can do. I'm sure we're going to get into that more today, particularly around gender, but the rest of our diversity is just fantastic, and I really do think it makes it a fun place to work. So since I finished the graduate scheme, I worked at National Express London Bus, and I became an operations manager. And then you're right, in 2009, Abellio took over that business, and I stayed with them. And I've been the ops director since 2017, and I added HR to that remit in January this year. So it's quite a wide range now. I look after all of our operation, but also HR, recruitment, training, comms, you name it, really. It probably sits in one of my hats. I really do enjoy it. It keeps me very busy and very day to day, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And like you say, you've got your fingers in a lot of different pies. So it must be really interesting meeting and working with so many different people and from all walks of life, I suppose, which leads us really nicely onto our conversation today. So you have been a very vocal advocate for improving diversity within the transportation industry. So to start us off today, why do you think it's so important that this be made an industry-wide priority?
So for me, diversity is really important because it makes us better. It brings different thoughts to the table. It means we're not all the same. We'll have some great challenge and debate, and we'll actually make everything better in terms of what we're doing. But also, we're reflective of the communities that we serve, and that's so important because public transport is there for the community, and if it isn't like our community, then it just doesn't work, and it doesn't give people what they need. But also, I think that people need role models and people to look for. Someone like me. They can see someone like me, etc., and go out and get what they want in their career. And bus is fantastic. I mean, public transport generally is fantastic as a career, but particularly, obviously, I'm passionate about bus.
Yeah.
But any transport is absolutely fantastic. There is so much that you can do, whether it's operations or it's project management or it's engineering, HR, whether it's some kind of a shared service, whether it's payroll or customer care or whatever it might be, there is something there for everyone, and you can do so much. And one of the things that's always struck me is that my friends feel my job's real. So I've always been told I've got a really real job. I deal with people all the time. It's safety and that kind of thing. It makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some other industries maybe don't have quite that draw. And I just think it's always resonated with me. And if you think about the pandemic and the fact that transport workers were recognised as key workers and things, it's true. We don't survive without public transport. We need it, and it's the future in terms of environment and sustainability. So there's so much available. And I think it's a growing industry sector with loads more professions available. So I do think it's a fantastic place to work, and I just want to make sure it's as diverse as it can be. So we've got that great thought leadership, and we can really drive forwards and be the best we can be.
No, absolutely. And I really like that sentiment that, a job within public transport is real. You're affecting people's lives on a daily basis, the opportunities that they have access to. And I think you're right in the sense that, the more that a workforce reflects the communities it's serving, the better it's going to serve them, isn't it? So I suppose my next question for you then is, if it is so important that diversity is improved, do you think that public transport companies are currently doing enough in order to support the women within their workforce?
So I think that this is a multi-factor question, really, because there's so much that we can do to support. Part of that is things like policies, so maternity leave policies, menopause, making sure that we have the right uniform for people, pay, obviously, and things like that. But then you've also got how can you develop people, and whether that's training, coaching, mentoring, whatever it might be. But there has got to be ways of helping people develop and be the best they can be and achieve their goals. And then also there's how do we encourage people into the industry in the first place, break down the barriers that exist, and make sure that we are, truly equal opportunity employers, because actually anybody can come and do what they want to do with us. So with public transport, you often hear around the shifts, or I don't know if you can drive a big vehicle, or toilet facilities, or working around school hours, whatever it might be. There are numbers of reasons why people might not want to join public transport.
Yeah.
And then even within public transport, maybe some people feel that rail is maybe the more exciting place to be, the sexier place than bus.
Who thought rail would ever be described as sexy?
But no, well, maybe not. But maybe bus can sometimes be seen as the poor relation. It genuinely isn't. It's such a great place to work. There's so much to do. And the people really do make it fantastic. But I think those kind of three things are really key. And I'm really proud to be a founding member in the new Women in Bus and Coach initiative. We just had our London launch in June, which was an amazing event. I went to this. I stood at the front of the room and talked, and I think my first sentence was literally, "Wow, when was the last time that you looked around and you were surrounded by this many women?" Because it's just not something that happens very often in bus, unfortunately. But it was such an amazing evening, and we heard from some really inspiring people at every level in the industry, and some of the things that we're trying to do to make it a better place, to be more attractive, to help people progress and stay what is a great sector. So I think that is something that we are working on actively. And I think that all people that have businesses in the sector are doing what they can to attract women and keep them. But there's always more that we can do. And clearly our stats reflect that right now. One of the aims that I talked about at that night was that I'd love to get to a place where we didn't have to measure diversity, because you could just look around and see it and feel it. And wouldn't that be an amazing place to be? It really would. And that is the aim that I'm working towards with Abellio. And I think that everybody wants it, really. We want to be reflective of the communities we serve. We need to get to that roughly 50-50 gender balance, and that will make us even better than now.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit at the beginning there about adapting to the different needs of different people. So how do you think that the industry can adapt further in order to make sure that it is the right place for women who are looking to, get involved, become part of the workforce, and, become as passionate about public transport as you are?
So I think there's more initiatives that we can do, and some of them have already started. We worked with Transport for London on a great Women with Drive initiative last year, where we basically tried to make ourselves more accessible. So we invited people who were maybe interested in obtaining their professional license and how they could get into the industry and learn more about it, but were a bit scared or nervous too. And so they had some dedicated time experiencing what it would be like just to test drive a bus. They learned a bit more about what the bus world meant and what it would look like if they were in a career. And then we put them through their training school. We had a 100% pass rate for the people that joined, which is
Oh, that's
amazing.
fantastic.
And I'll tell you, not normal training schools. So it showed that we did the right thing in terms of setting them up correctly for their career, and that's amazing. But it was a reasonably small scale trial, so we need to do more of those kind of things. I also think we need to do more working with young people, so schools, and that's starting young. Like, we do lots at nursery and sort of early primary school levels, but we tend to not do so much then after. And I think there could be a lot there that can open up people's eyes and make sure that they understand what kind of careers are available. And then I think there's something around, trying to help people back into work after, say, having children, or later in the, whether it's maybe a second or third career, or after a career break of any reason. I think there's something we could do there to help target people who could then come and actually find out that this is a great place to be. It's flexible, it can work on our lifestyles, and in some ways that's the beauty of shift work. Actually, it really can work around your life, but you just have to find the right fit. So I think there's a lot more that we could do there to try and help encourage people in.
No, that's great, thank you. And I think that absolutely, there's so many different sort of varieties of people, isn't there? Different backgrounds and experiences, and like you were saying about how people that have career gaps that maybe are like you say 3 or 4 jobs into their career, but they've taken that time away and they're not really sure about how to kind of approach maybe a new industry, particularly as well if they haven't worked in public transport before. And I mean, the 100% pass rate is really commendable, and that's absolutely brilliant to hear that they've had that support and then it's been so clearly shown in the results. That's fantastic. And I wanted to pick up on what you said there about young people, because obviously the issue of diversity is far bigger than only focusing on improving gender diversity. So could you possibly share some thoughts with us about how the industry should be improving the opportunities that are available for other workers from other types of diverse backgrounds?
Sure. I mean, I think age is a cracking example for me there, Leah, because our average age is about 46.5 years old, and it's been slightly creeping older over the last few years. So we effectively have an aging workforce, which obviously brings with it concerns around people's health as well, and sickness, etc. But we also, if we were to keep going with that trend, then in a few years' time we'd have a real problem. So it's really important that we are being diverse in our approaches and trying to encourage more young people in. And I think there's a lot more there to be done around apprenticeships, graduates, or even people who maybe haven't completed graduate degrees but actually were starting off along that route. And I think that trying to get out there earlier for people and understand the careers that are available, making sure we are at the appropriate careers fairs at the right time, whether that's in early sixth form or actually it's at GCSE level, wherever it might be. We need to make sure that we're getting in there then to try and encourage people in and showcase, I think, the industry itself and the careers and options available to you. Because a lot of people will probably look at buses, particularly in public transport, and say, well, bus driving is all there is. And it's far wider than that. Clearly, that's the public face. But there's a whole host of careers available in this amazing sector. And I think that we need to do more to showcase that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what about other colleagues as well? So things like people from the LGBTQ plus background as well, and that sort of thing, because some people, not necessarily some people, colleagues from across the industry, they may not feel comfortable bringing their true selves to work. And it can be really difficult feeling supported, feeling encouraged, and sort of free to, bring their personal lives and their personal self into the workplace, especially considering some of the unfortunate situations in the past in terms of things like discrimination. So why do you think it's important that people do feel encouraged and supported when it comes to bringing their true selves to work each day?
Oh, it's so important. And this is something I'm really passionate about, bringing your true self to work. Because if you're doing that, bringing your true self to work, then you're going to be the best you can be. You're going to provide the best customer service, or you're going to fix the bus the best you can do. Whatever it might be, you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And it's also just so important from a colleague experience, for for building relationships, etc. You are working with that real person. So I for example, our uniform is unisex. You can choose items from across the catalogue and wear whatever you fancy, regardless of your gender or non-binary or whatever. You can choose what works for you. We are very proud of our colleagues who like to maybe share themselves best by having purple hair or pink hair or whatever it might be on their nails. It doesn't matter to us. We want people to bring their whole selves to work and be proud to do that. And we will showcase that across our channels internally. And we run profiles of people and things like that to raise awareness. And I think that it's just really important. We also, in all of our recruitment adverts, have the pride flag on there as well, to make sure that people know that we're accepting and diverse, and we really want people to come and work for us. So I think that kind of thing is really important. And it isn't just LGBTQ plus, it isn't just age, it isn't gender, it's literally all parts of diversity. We really want everybody, because that will make us the best we can be. And also makes it just a really great place to work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like you said, when you're free to be your true self, you bond with people better, don't you? You feel more comfortable in the workspace, and you build those really good relationships, friendships, and it's far easier, isn't it? People enjoy coming to work each day. They want to stay within the company, within the industry, and that's what ultimately companies want to do, don't they? They want to keep their staff, they want to retain them, and that's a really good way of going about that. So, what would be your personal advice for other companies who are looking to support their workforce in a way that, does make them feel free and comfortable when they are at work?
I would literally say to let people be what they want to be, and to showcase themselves in any way. I was at a summit, an employee engagement summit earlier this year, and there was a really great presentation from a company who were very proud of the fact that they were just allowing people to have tattoos on show. And it is great. It is absolutely fantastic that is now something that they do. But it's also 2023. How is it only just happening? And that kind of thing, there have been, I think the airlines have been in the news in probably the past 10 years for having issues with, say, a cross necklace on display, or, there's been other issues around companies who've had headwear concerns around religious things. For me, people need to be there themselves, and so you need to let people do that. There's no point in having onerous policies in place that stop people being themselves, bringing their whole self to work. And if you're doing that, then again, you're not reflecting the communities you serve, and you're making it difficult for people to be themselves at work, and ultimately for them to stay with you. So for me, you need to do everything you can to let people bring their whole self to work.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And as we kind of come to the end of the conversation today, we've spoken a lot about diversity as a whole on quite broad terms, but what initiatives has Abellio London undertaken in order to improve diversity within its own workforce, as well as to support women and others from diverse backgrounds to be leaders at all levels of the business?
So we have been part of a whole mentoring and coaching program for women across our business, and we worked with not only Abellio London Bus there, but our sister TOCs in the rail world, and to Transport UK as well. So we have mentors and coaches from across our entire business who work with people to develop themselves and achieve their goals. We've also had a big launch this year for International Women's Day around showcasing some of the women in various roles around our business, and how their careers have progressed, and what they've learned and what their advice would be along the way. We are doing far more in terms of our recruitment adverts as well. So we did a lot of research with a linguistics company around some of the language that you should use or not use. It turns out that subliminally, it's a very difficult word for me to say, there are words that are masculine. So a woman reading a particular advert will be turned off by certain words, because she'll think, oh, that's not really me, I can't do that. And there's also a lot of research around imposter syndrome and the way that you lay out a job advert in terms of the qualities that you need or the criteria you might want someone to meet. Because a woman will see something, and if she doesn't hit all of them, will think, oh, I can't apply for that role, even if it's a desirable, not an essential type criteria. Whereas a man might think, actually, I really hits a few of those, but I'll still apply. And so there are differences just in the way that men and women think, and how they portray themselves. So making sure that we can do the best we can from a recruitment point of view is really important. And so we've been on quite a journey with our recruitment adverts as a result of that as well. And there's also the usual things around showcasing our people in the best way that we can. So showcasing our diversity and making sure that we are representative of our people in our outplacing adverts as well, I think is really important, and something we've been doing a lot of.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think, there's a lot of companies out there that can learn from the work that you're doing in order to improve their own strategies. So thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to round off our conversation today by asking you a question that is always really divisive. When I ask people to look to the future and into their crystal ball and consider what it may possibly look like, some people panic, some people are quite optimistic. So I think just to round off our conversation today, it would be really great to hear from you about, let's say in 5 years' time, what you hope the public transport industry's workforce will look like, and sort of what the future could be in terms of continuing to improve it.
I actually love that question.
Yay! Another one to add to the positive side.
So for me, I want us to have made a really huge step forward on gender diversity, because I think that's the area that we are worst represented in, and that's at every level in the industry. I want to be able to look around and see success from women in bus and coach, and see more and more women achieving their goals and progressing. So I'd like to see more women in senior roles. There's not currently female MD on the London bus operators, for example. That would be great to see. And I'd also like to see more female drivers and engineers too, because that's an area that we definitely have a problem with. But yes, I'd like to look around and see a lot more women. I'd like to see us continue the rest of our amazing diversity, so whether that's ethnicity or religion or sexual orientation, whatever it might be. I want to see more and more of that, because as is now, it's amazing. And I'd also like to see that actually, the international driver shortage is reducing because of that. That we've done our job in terms of showcasing the industry and why people should want to work here, and actually encourage people in and help them stay. That would just be a phenomenal place to be.
No, absolutely. And I think, if the work that you're currently doing is any indication, I certainly feel like Abellio is on the right track to that happening. And I look forward to seeing what more happens and what more work you will do in achieving this. So thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today, Lorna. And I genuinely am really quite sad that we have reached the end of our conversation and it's all that we have time for today. But it's been such a pleasure chatting with you and learning more about the work that Abellio has been doing in the realm of diversity. A quick note for our audience: if you did enjoy our conversation today, then make sure to share the episodes with your peers so that they can enjoy it just as much as you did. And make sure to tune in for our next episode, where I'll be sitting down with Andrew Savage, the Vice President and Head of Sustainability at Lime, as he shares his exclusive insight with us into the work that Lime is doing in order to achieve a carbon-free future. But for now, thank you once again, Lorna, for such a fantastic discussion. Like I said, it has been an absolute pleasure. And to all of our audience members, we hope to see you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Leah.